Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology on a Saturday. Is the Synod of Bishops rigged by Pope Francis? This is a claim that I'm seeing people spreading online, saying, hey, this upcoming Synod of Bishops is rigged by Pope Francis, so be warned. Well, I want to consider that. Is it in fact rigged? Well, in order to answer that question, it's important that we know what the Synod of Bishops actually is. And I would say in most cases, we don't know what it is. And that's the problem. And that is what causes people to make these kinds of claims. Whereas if one knew what the Synod of Bishops was, they would realize that their claim makes very little sense. It just, again, shows a person's ignorance. Let me share my screen, and we're going to go to the Code of Canon Law, and we're going to evaluate what the Synod of Bishops is in order to determine, is it rigged? If you look at the Code of Canon Law, beginning at Canon 342, it tells us what the Synod of Bishops is. The Synod of Bishops is a group of bishops who has been chosen from different regions of the world and meet together at fixed times to foster closer unity between the Roman Pontiff and bishops, to assist the Roman Pontiff with their counsel. Did you hear that? They are an advisory body. They are consultants. The Pope picks them to consult him on theological matters, to assist the Roman Pontiff with their counsel in the preservation and growth of faith and morals, and in the observance and strengthening of ecclesiastical discipline, and to consider questions pertaining to the activity in the church. It is for the Synod of Bishops to discuss the questions for consideration and express its wishes, but not to resolve them or issue decrees about them. They do not have authority to decide anything in the church. That is the Synod of Bishops. They cannot resolve anything. Why? Because they're a consultative body, not an authoritative body. This is not a council of bishops. This isn't like a ecumenical council. This is not the College of Bishops. This is usually a group of bishops and also laymen who are experts and are giving the Pope advice in theological matters, but they have zero authority to decide magisterially doctrine or discipline. Unless, in certain cases, the Roman Pontiff has endowed it with deliberative power in which he ratifies the decisions of the Synod, which the Pope has never done yet. Never happened yet. He could, but it's never happened. The Synod of Bishops is directly subject to the authority of the Roman Pontiff, who, so the Pope, convokes a Synod as often as it seems opportune to him. So whenever he wants to do this, and designates the place where its sessions are to be held. So he chooses where it's going to happen. Radios the election of members who must be elected according to the norm of special law, and designates and appoints other members. So he's the one who appoints and elects the members. He determines at an appropriate time before the celebration of a synod the contents of the question to be treated according to the norm of special law. He defines the agenda. The Pope defines the agenda. The Pope determines who's going to be there. The Pope determines what is going to be discussed. He presides at the synod personally or through others, concludes, transfers, suspends, and dissolves the synod. So, what we're seeing here in the Code of Canon Law is that the Synod of Bishops is a consultative body. It is not a council of bishops. It's not the College of Bishops. They do not have the authority to decide anything. They just simply propose their recommendations to the Pope as a consultative or advisory body. Is the Synod rigged? That's a nonsensical question in light of what the Synod of Bishops is. And again, it shows the profundity of the ignorance of a person who would actually make that claim. Because the whole purpose of a Synod of Bishops is for the Pope to select who is going to advise him. Let me ask you a question. Does the President of the United States determine who his advisors are? Yeah, that's called the presidential cabinet. Does that mean the cabinet is rigged? That's a nonsensical question in light of the very nature of what a presidential cabinet is. Let me ask you another question. Do you choose who your advisors are in your life personally? You, who's watching this, do you choose who your advisors are? Okay. Probably. I don't think there's anybody forcing you to listen to somebody else and saying, okay, this has to be a personal advisor in your life and he's going to give you advice on everything going on in your life, but you're being forced to listen to him and you can't choose who your advisors are. I don't think there's anybody coercing you to select a certain advisor over another. You would choose who is going to advise you in your life. You seek counsel from people that you want to hear counsel from. Well, does that mean that you've rigged your advisors? It's a nonsensical question. Of course you actively select who your advisors are. Of course you do. That is what the Pope is doing here. If the Pope wanted to rig something, he doesn't need the Synod of Bishops to do it. He could just simply issue an apostolic exhortation teaching whatever he wants. He doesn't need a Synod of Bishops to rig anything. The purpose of the Synod of Bishops is to give him advice before he makes a theological decision. He can listen to the advice, or he can reject it, or he can listen to it in part. Just like you, if you have an advisor, you could take their advice or leave it. You might take it in part and leave some of the other aspects to it. It's exactly what the Pope can do. But he doesn't need a Synod of Bishops to determine something authoritatively. He could just issue an apostolic exhortation right now. He doesn't need a Synod of Bishops. And he could bypass all the congregations if he wanted to, because the congregations are there to assist him in his ministry. Would it be unwise for a pope to do such things? Yes, it would. It would be very unwise for a pope to bypass the congregations and also to just completely ignore perhaps a consultative body. That would be very unwise in my estimation. It is, according to the book of Proverbs, there's wisdom in having counselors. So again, could the Pope do such a thing? Yeah, but it's not really a good idea. You want to hear other people. You want to get their wisdom. And what the Pope is doing here is he's getting a wide variety of individuals. If you look at the people he's chosen, they're pretty wide in range. There's some who are more progressive than others. There's some who are more traditional than others. He's getting a wide range of individuals to kind of hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then he will make a decision after hearing their considerations on various topics. And he'll issue a post-synodal apostolic exhortation. But again, if the Pope just wanted to push something on the church, he doesn't need a Synod of Bishops to do that. So why are we resorting to wild conspiracy theories about the Pope rigging the Synod of Bishops? This is absurd. Again, it shows that we don't even understand what the Synod of Bishops is. It's as if we think that this is a council. It's as if we think that this is an act of the College of Bishops. And if you just simply looked at canon law and saw the very basis or definition of what a Synod of Bishops is, you would know it's a hand-picked advisory body for the Pope. To say that this is rigged completely shows one's ignorance. So I would recommend anybody that you see out there who's saying, oh, this thing is rigged, and they're just trying to get all kinds of conspiracies going. You know what? Those are people who don't know what they're talking about. They don't even know the very basics of what the Synod of Bishops is. Ironically, it's those same individuals who would profess their allegiance to 21 ecumenical councils, as they should. Any good Catholic should. But ironically, they would profess their allegiance to 21 ecumenical councils. Well, one of them, the 5th ecumenical council, was rigged. And it was rigged by a layman. That's the irony here. A layman, rigged, dictated from top to bottom, the outcome of the council. Now, I accept the 5th ecumenical council. I'm a Catholic. I accept it. But I recognize that God used imperfect means to bring about his will. And it's not just the 5th ecumenical council where we see that happening. There were certainly some shenanigans that went on with the Council of Ephesus. I also accept the Council of Ephesus. But we If you were to read the Acts of the Council of Ephesus, you'll see, God writes straight lines with crooked sticks, as the saying goes. That's what we have with some of our councils, especially the Fifth Ecumenical Council. Again, dictated by a layman from start to finish. There was no real deliberation that took place between the bishops. The bishops were given the agenda by a layman, and they were determined and given an outcome that they had to come to by a layman, Emperor Justinian. So what's interesting is people have their hair on fire about the Pope rigging the Synod of Bishops, which is a nonsensical claim given that it is a handpicked advisory body with no magisterial authority. When meanwhile, we have actual ecumenical councils that were rigged by a layman. And so, yeah, I think we're missing things here. And I think we're getting worked up over things that we shouldn't be worked up about. Now, I'll say this, as I've said before, I'm going to continue to say it. As this synod unfolds, you'll see some shenanigans with it. You'll see some people there at the synod who will say some wild things. You'll see some people who probably say some heterodox things. It's definitely happened before. Not only at synods, these synods of bishops, but at actual councils. You've seen people in the Acts who will say some wild stuff. Maybe read the Acts of the Council of Chalcedon. You'll see some wild stuff there. Bishops shouting at each other back and forth, and all kinds of just wild stuff going on. It's a tough read. I don't think the Synod of Bishops will be as bad as that, but I think you're going to see some shenanigans. Don't panic, because what's going to happen is there will be people who will come here on social media, especially on YouTube, and they're going to say, look at what this person said on the Synod of Bishops, and they will try to get you stirred up into a frenzy. Hey, everything is changing. They're trying to change the faith. They're going to abandon the faith. They're abandoning tradition. And in reality, maybe an individual there has abandoned the faith, and that's certainly unfortunate. And I do think that one should be disciplined if they express something that's heretical in nature. But that doesn't mean that somehow the Synod of Bishops has abandoned the faith, nor does it mean really anything at the end of the day for the Magisterium, because, again, whatever the bishops end up saying at the end of the day is merely advice to the Pope, and the Pope will analyze it and take it or leave it. What will matter is not all the deliberation that really goes on, not all the shenanigans that may go on. What's really going to matter at the end of the day is what the Pope teaches in his post-apostolic exhortation, because that's what will be magisterial. But make no mistake, if your point is to say, well, the Pope is just rigging this whole thing to get a certain outcome, that is a foolish statement. The Pope doesn't need the Synod of Bishops to do that. He could do it right now if he wanted to. He could issue right now an apostolic exhortation or an encyclical or some other papal teaching or papal document of various levels, and he could promulgate whatever he wants. Now, I do believe there's a protection and assistance of the Holy Spirit, and so I don't think he's going to. But the point is, if you've already bought into that wild conspiracy, what's the purpose of the Synod of Bishops? Why would he have to use that? He doesn't. He could literally just issue an apostolic exhortation right now. He doesn't need to wait for a synod and then issue a post-apostolic exhortation. It makes no sense. So calm down. Don't get your hair on fire. The sky's not falling. This happens with every Synod of Bishops that we have seen so far, since they began with Paul VI, because it's a relatively new thing. Synods of bishops historically have been actual bodies that were authoritative in nature and actually did have authority to teach, as opposed to this. But every single Synod of bishops, if you kind of look at the history of these things, there's always people out there stirring people up in the media, trying to get people to panic every single time. And yet we're still here. The faith is still intact. The Holy See is still intact. The Magisterium is still intact. We're here. Every single time they turn out to be wrong, It turns out that they were engaging in wild conspiracy theories and fear mongering. And yet we're here. And that's going to be the exact same thing with this synod. This one will come and it will go, just like all of the other ones before it. And if you're already here, if you've already accepted that the church hasn't defected from the faith until the present, then there's nothing that you're going to see from this post-apostolic exhortation that would make you say, okay, well, now the church has defected from the faith. Not if you're being fair in your evaluation. So calm down. First of all, realize what a synod of bishops is. And I would say ignore those who don't know what it is and are trying to stir you up into a frenzy. Hopefully this helps. If it does, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also check me out, patreon.com/reason in theology. I'm posting extra Patreon-only content there. In fact, I'll be doing so in just a little bit today. And so if you want to get access to extra material, check me out there. And also hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Because if you want to see this video shared with people, if you think that this is something that people need to see, I need your help. I need your participation. I need you to interact with the video, like, subscribe, comment, because the more you interact with it, the more YouTube will share it. So again, if you feel this is something that people need to see, interact with it so that YouTube and the algorithm will share it more often. All right. We'll see y'all later. God bless. Hey, everybody. Just wanted to tell you about my new free ebook, Church Chaos, Biblical Insights for Confused Catholics. If you are a confused Catholic and you're thinking about leaving the Catholic Church, or you're thinking about converting to the church, but you see that there's a crisis in the church and you're just unsure, this is the book for you. Again, it is free. Just simply go to reasonandtheology.com. You'll see a pop-up that comes up on your screen. Just simply click on it and you'll put in your email and it will provide you the free PDF ebook right then and there. Please check it out if you're confused about the situation in the Catholic Church today. reasonandtheology.com. So Reason in Theology is growing as a channel. As a result, there's been a number of increases in production costs. So if you're benefiting from RNT, I ask that you consider supporting the channel. You can help out by contributing to the Help RNT Grow fundraiser on GoFundMe. You could also consider becoming a member on Patreon at patreon.com/Reason in Theology, or become a channel member right here on YouTube. With either of these options, Patreon or a YouTube member, you'll get extra access to patron-only content. You can also donate directly to RNT at PayPal if you prefer that option. And you can find links to all of these resources and ways to support RNT in the show description. God bless.